Finding slope in an equation. Finding the slope in an equation is super easy. One thing you just want to remember is that the slope of any linear equation is y equals mx plus b, and the parameter m represents your slope. So in these situations, or these two examples, identifying the slope is really easy. You can see that these are already written in mx plus b form. And since they're already written that way, the coefficient that falls in the same place as that m is what your slope is. So for the first equation, your slope is -7. And you can see for the second equation, if you write mx plus b underneath it, that 2/3 is what your slope is. Now, in the next example, you'll notice it's not in the same format that we want it. We want it to say y is the same as mx plus b. So in order to make it that way, what we want to make sure we do is that we isolate our variable y. So in this instance, to get y by itself, we're going to add 3x to both sides. And then on the left, we'll be left with y is the same as, and on the other side we want it to be in the same format, so we want to make sure that we put our term that has x's in it first, 3x plus 7. And now you'll notice that if we take this equation and we write it right underneath it, you can easily see that your slope, which is m, is 3. So if there's ever an instance where you're stuck and you don't know how to solve for the slope, when all else fails, solve for y. So take a second and pause the video and see if you can do this next example by yourself. All right, now that you've tried it on your own, we always want to remember that the slope is represented in the equation that is y is the same as mx plus b, and the parameter m is your slope. So in this instance, we again want to isolate our variable. So the first thing that we'll have to do is -12 on both sides. So we'll be left with -3y being the same as -15. And when we divide by -3, we're going to end up with y being the same as 5. Now, if you notice, when we write mx plus b underneath this, there is no term that has x. So in this instance, what this means is that it's 0, because if our slope is 0, 0 times anything, including x, is going to be 0. So in this instance, our slope is 0. Again, pause the video and see if you can try this one on your own. Okay, so if you were trying to identify the slope in this specific equation, remember the first thing that you want to do is solve for y. And it really doesn't matter if y ends up isolated on the left or the right. It still is the same thing. So in order to get these y's by themselves, I'm going to take away 7. And on the other side, I want to make sure that I take away 7 from the constants, the ones that are only numbers. So I'll end up with 4y being the same as 4 plus 2x. Now, if you notice, this y doesn't have a coefficient of 4 in front of it in our standard equation. So the last thing that we'll have to do is divide by 4 so that we can get the value of just 1y left. Okay, and if we divide the left side of the equation by 4, we have to make sure that we divide every other term by 4 to keep our equation balanced. And by doing that, you're going to see 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we have 1y is the same as, again, 4 divided by 4 is 1. And you're going to notice this doesn't have the x, so that's actually going to go here. And then this is our, right here, 2 over 4x, which we can actually simplify If we simplify them both by 2, we'll get 1/2 x. And so now it's very easy to see that the slope of the line here is 1/2.